Hi students. This video is to tell you a little bit about what I will refer to as metacognitive conversation. Metacognitive conversation is just conversation in which we talk about our thinking and we look at our thinking and we think about our thinking. And the way it relates to us in this class is that, as I've said in previous videos, we have a lot of challenging reading in this class. So one of the things I really want us to do as we move through the semester is practice different reading strategies and give you different tools to use to make you stronger readers. And one technique I really like is based on a teaching philosophy called reading apprenticeship. So you may have heard the term apprentice before, like if somebody apprentices to a bicycle mechanic, they may go to where a bicycle mechanic works, and they may watch what the mechanic does as he works on bicycles. And then maybe if he's an apprentice, at some point the mechanic lets he or she take over, right, and fix the bicycles while the more experienced mechanic watches and maybe gives suggestions, right? So that's how a normal apprenticeship works. The tricky thing about that with reading is that reading is a silent activity, right? Like, so I think of myself as pretty good at reading. I'm an English teacher. I've been to school a lot, and I'm pretty good at figuring out a reading. But if I just sat beside you and read something to myself, you're not going to learn anything about the tools and tricks I use to figure out a reading. So what we do, so the reading apprenticeship philosophy tries to take that silent inward strategy we're using and bring it outward by verbalizing it. So one technique in reading apprenticeship that I really like is called a think aloud. And what you do in a think aloud is you read a text, and as you read it out loud. You'll be doing this with a partner or sometimes with 2 or 3 or 4 partners. You read a text out loud, but as you read it, you're also saying it out loud what you're thinking about it as you read. And the point of us doing all of this together is that when we hear not only what our partner is reading, but where they get confused, how they, try to solve problems as they read, we can pick up tips and tricks from them about that will help us all become better readers. So the first time you do a think aloud, I got to tell you, you can feel pretty stupid, right? Because especially since we're starting with some really tough readings in this class. But what I really want to emphasize to you is doing a think aloud is not about being super smart or making great observations. It's just about starting to explore a reading with a partner and sharing that exploration together. You may do a think aloud with a partner and come to the end of that think aloud and be like, wow, I only understood about 20% of what I just read. That's okay. What's really useful and what you should focus on is, what did you understand? What do you not understand? What helped you figure out the parts you figured out? What specific questions do you have? But this week, we're going to start with what I call a targeted think aloud, where I'm just going to assign you 1 or 2, maybe in some cases 4 short paragraphs of either the Kant article or the Descartes article. You're going to think aloud to it with a partner. You and your partner are going to answer a discussion question about it. You guys also are going to take notes on each other as you do the think aloud. And what you do when you take notes is you'll see there's a note-taking form in our module. One column asks you to take notes on what your partner is doing as they read. Oh, she stopped and she reread from the beginning of the sentence to try to figure out what Kant was saying. Or, oh, she looked up that word. Or, oh, she asked a question. So the left hand of the note-taking column is just going to be what strategies did my partner use to try to figure out the reading? The right-hand column on the note-taking form is just what observations did they make about the reading? Oh, I think Descartes is talking about how everything he believes seems like a dream to him, or he imagines it could be a dream. Whatever your partner observes about what he or she thinks is the author is saying, that would go in the right-hand column. But you'll see an explanation of that further on in this module. For right now, I just want to give you a demonstration of what a Think Aloud looks like. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the beginning of the Descartes reading. When you do this with a partner, I'm going to have assigned you a couple paragraphs of the reading, and you and your partner are going to split up that section into two parts. And one of you is going to read and think aloud to half of it, and the other of you is going to read and think aloud to the other half. And this is what it might look like when one of you begins thinking aloud. Okay, so here I go. I'm looking at this reading. I think, therefore I am, Rene Descartes. So that title, I've heard of this before. I think he's saying something about how because he can think about something, he exists, maybe. And Rene Descartes, I don't really know anything about him, but it sounds like a French name. Now I'm reading the introduction, the French, so I was right, he's French. The French mathematician and philosopher Descartes, who lived from 1596 to 1650, was one of the great precursors of the Enlightenment. So I think a precursor is somebody that comes before. So he came before the Enlightenment, or maybe what he did led to the Enlightenment is what I think it's saying. Indeed, one of the founders of modern rationalism. So I think they're saying he was one of the founders of modern rationalism. And rationalism, like rational thinking, is just thinking really objectively and not being carried away by emotion, I think. This famous selection, okay, so what I'm about to read is just a selection from something larger, is from his Discourse on Method, published in Latin in 1637. So I'm thinking, oh, he was French, but he wrote in Latin. Maybe that was typical for that time. And it was in 1637. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to read paragraph 1. Like a man who walks alone and in darkness, I resolved to go so slowly and to use so much circumspection in everything. Okay, so he's comparing himself to a man who walks alone and in darkness, and I don't know why. And he's saying he's going to go slowly at something, but I'm not exactly sure what he's going to go slowly at yet. And to use so much circumspection. So I think circumspection is like skepticism, but I'm going to look it up. So I'm going to flip over to my dictionary, which I have open on another screen. You might not be able to see it, but I looked up circumspect. And for circumspect, it says careful to consider all circumstances and possible consequences, prudent. So prudent to me seems like, well, careful, considering everything. Okay, so he's saying, I'm going to consider everything. That if I did not advance speedily, at least I should keep from falling. So I think what he's saying is, so even though I might not move quickly on this journey I'm going on, and I don't really know what kind of journey he's talking about yet, at least I should keep from falling. I would not even have desired to begin by entirely rejecting any of the opinions which had formerly been able to slip into my belief. So I think he's saying, I don't even want to start by rejecting things I used to think, things that slipped into my belief without being introduced there by reason. So these things I started to believe, even though they really weren't introduced there by reason. Maybe I started to believe and take certain positions and I hadn't really applied any reason to them. had I not first spent much time in projecting the work which I was to undertake. So if I hadn't first, I spent a lot of time like thinking about the work that I was going to do and in seeking the true method of arriving at a knowledge of everything. So now it sounds like he's trying to find a method of arriving at a knowledge of everything of which my understanding should be capable. So he's saying, I'm trying to find a true method to understand everything I could possibly understand, everything my understanding should be capable of. So that's a think aloud. You could hear I was kind of wandering around. I didn't understand everything. That's fine. A think aloud is messy. You're going to do this with a partner. You're going to record it. You should not worry about being right, being brilliant. It should take you less than 30 minutes. That's all you need to do is you're going to read it and think aloud to it. And your partner's going to take notes on what you're doing. Then you're going to switch. They're going to do the second half. They're going to read and think aloud to it. You're going to take notes on what they're doing. You're going to record it. You're going to upload the recording, turn it in. That's it. Okay, so that's what a think aloud is. Let me know if you have any questions, but there are a lot more details in the rest of this module about how to do one.